Last week, I was spending a lot of time fussing and working on the construction of a new art studio up in St. Anthony Friar. And some of it went well, some of it was just plain frustrating. One problem in an old building led to another problem, and another trip to Home Depot. And then I was watching television, trying to relax. And the political harangue that was on was just wearing me down. And then yesterday, Israel bombed a school in Hamas, among the killing over 900 people, mostly children. In a war that just has no intelligence, has no heart, just passion and anger. And so when I looked at the first reading for today from the book of Kings, I love the reading, but it kind of grabbed hold of me yesterday. Elijah went a day's journey into the desert until he came to a broom tree, and he sat beneath it. And he prayed for death, saying, "This is enough, Lord. Take my life, for I am no better off than my fathers." And he lay down and he fell asleep under the broom tree. But then an angel came and touched him and ordered him to get up and eat. Elijah looked, and there at his head was a hearth cake and a jug of water. He ate, so tired he fell back asleep. And the angel comes a second time and says, "Man, get up. You're not finished. You're going to need some of this hearth cake and some of the water, all of the water probably, for the journey ahead. So prepare." So the prophet consumed the food and took a deep breath and started to walk. And he walked 40 days, 40 nights, until he came to the holy mountain. I think there are times, I know there are times in my life, and I trust that there are times in your life when things just pile up, and you don't know how you're going to accomplish what you hope you can do. You don't know where you'll find your strength, whether you'll have the resources or the support. And then even when you're trying to just distance yourself, we're inundated with so much language and feelings about the economy, about immigration, about the environment. And it becomes, frankly, too much. At least for me it does. And the temptation is just to click the off button and try to dream awake and go through it life without getting too involved, too aware. I was just thinking yesterday too, the report that Ukraine has been able to come into Russia because of the weapons we have sent. They're able to make a strong attack into Russia. In a way, it's good news, but it's horrifying news. Because it just pushes the war to a broader field of suffering. Then you look at the gospel today, and Jesus gives us this rather sophisticated presentation that is clear in its language, but very unclear in what it really means. I am the bread of life. He who eats my flesh has life forever. Well, we have, for 2,000 years, have come to understand that as coming to the Eucharist, that when we celebrate the Eucharist and we consume the body and the blood of Christ, we have life. But that passage in John was written around the year 100. And it meant that it took the Christian community 65, 70 years of living with the mystery that the Messiah was with them and ready to take on the whole Messiahship that was going to come and manifest himself in Jerusalem during Holy Week. And instead, he is massacred, he's murdered. And the apostles are confused and flying all over the place, trying to figure out what to do next. And then there was the assurance that Jesus was still with them. And they speak of it as though they really actually saw him. And that when he was with them, to convince them of their insecurity, he eats with them, has some fish, some bread. And with that memory, those early disciples stepped into society, into the Roman world and in the Jewish world, and they suffered for their step. James was martyred, eventually Peter and Paul are martyred in Rome. But after 20 to 30 years after their death, they're still clinging and reflecting on the mystery of Christ with us. Here we are 2,000 years later with the same challenge and the same invitation. That with all of the confusion that maybe we feel yesterday, maybe the good points, but also the problems and the challenges, the fact that my electrical system is not working well at all in this new endeavor, and so we come back to our day today, this afternoon, with the concern and the question, who is this Jesus who promises to save us from confusion, from suffering, from death? Where is he? How do we experience him in our lives today? And rather than have a blast of light and a big voice, and he shows up wearing a red, white tunic and speaks in perfect classic English, he allows us to gather in his name and to speak his words of consolation and challenge to one another. You know, sometimes I go, why doesn't he do it more effectively? Why doesn't he, if that's really what he wants, then why doesn't he just blow a whistle, come down, and somehow speak 85 different languages in a few moments and get the message out, and we're all lined up and ready to go? You know, it came to me the other day, the Lord was saying, you know, John, I've been at this for 13.5 billion years. I've been at this for 13 billion years. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. Trust me that I am there. Trust me that I have your heart's desire in my heart. And we go back to the simple reading this morning of the prophet going out on his big mission. He's going to do something wonderful, to say something insightful. And he's exhausted and he falls asleep under a big old broom tree. And his thought was, this is just too much. Lord, just take my life. I'm cashing in. I'm going to move on. This is too much trouble. And what the Lord gives is nourishment. Didn't give all kinds of advice. Didn't give a new charter, pamphlet, his mission, the words he should speak. But gave him something simple that he needed. He needed some cake, some bread, and some water. And like us, takes it and then falls back asleep. The Lord comes back again, sends his angel to take some more because you're going to need it. You've got quite a walk to go. And he does that. And he walked for 40 days and 40 nights. I think in some ways, at least in my life, I'm in the midst of the solutions. They just aren't realized completely yet. The answers are there. They just have not worked out yet completely. They're in process. And we're constantly now, every day, being reminded that we have 89 days till election. 89 days, 88 days, and the whole world is going to be either saved or destroyed. And it's this drumming message, I think, wears us out. It was like we survived the pandemic. We got through that, and now we've got another set of preoccupations that are going to go on without a quick and solid answer. So what I'm drawing a conclusion is that in every century of the church's history, in every decade in my life, Christ is there, and I experience his presence in a different way. The way I experienced the Lord this morning when I was shaving after taking a shower is different than the way I experienced Christ when I made my first Holy Communion. Same Christ. But my appreciation, my acceptance of his love, of his presence, is different. What I would hope to leave with you is encouragement that if, like the prophet, you're ready to hang things up and go to sleep under the broom tree, take a rest. Probably need it. But at the same time, be ready for the renewed journey in the morning after you've caught your breath. And you say, well, what are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? How do we act? Well, then I say, go back to the second reading. Was that a thing from Ephesians? And it's rather, if you paid attention, if you can pay attention to it, it is rather exhausting. How we treat one another with kindness. Do not hold grudges, etc. And in doing that, living that way, I believe we encounter the Lord who is the bread of our lives, who gives us sustenance and peace. Let's pause for just a few moments. In the quiet of our hearts, to reconnect with that wonderful mystery of God incarnate in our lives and in our experience within Jesus.